Tommy, you're a massive fan of the franchise. Myself, not as
Yes.
much. I'm pretty sure I've seen the first three a very, very long time ago. Don't remember a single bit about them other than like the key little moments. So it's quite funny to see them all referenced in like little flashbacks in this film.
There's so many flashbacks in this one.
Yeah, they always give you a nice little, oh, isn't that this thing, Ethan, from this place? And when you had this problem with that guy? So it kind of gives you a little bit
actually,
of a catch up at the beginning.
actually, they did it a little bit too much in this one, I believe. But like they were
Yeah.
so scared because the previous movie underperformed. So they were not sure that a lot of people really remembered or cared for that reckoning. So basically, they do a huge recap. Like the first hour of this movie is just prep work. But yeah, like this is getting ahead of myself. Going back to your first question about Mission Impossible as a franchise, I love Mission Impossible. They are silly movies, yes, but they are my silly movies, and I wouldn't even call them like guilty pleasures, really, because
No,
outside
no.
of the ridiculous plot of some of these, the filmmaking on display is just chef's kiss. Like, if you accept that this is a campy spy movie universe and the laws of reality are as flexible as the director or Tom need them to be in any given scene, you're gonna have a good time. So yeah,
Absolutely. I think for me it's when that plot gets too convoluted and a bit messy. It
yeah.
kind of loses touch with what it is. But for the most part, I think yeah, these are definitely really well made movies, and I think there is a grounded element to them, and obviously the star of the show is the big stunt action sequences, which really deliver pretty much in all the films, even the ones which I didn't necessarily love. So
Exactly. And also, we were discussing Thunderbolts recently, right? And you were kind of lamenting the fact that recent media is very rarely genuine and earnest, like older
yes.
movies used to be, right?
I
Every
literally noted that down. Like this shows real reverence, and it actually is genuine.
Everything needs to be a subversion now, a deconstruction of something. Mission Impossible is probably the most genuine franchise out there. Ethan Hunt is just a good spy who wants to do good things. That's his character, literally. Like they had 8 movies to develop him and they never did. It's just a good guy. And he's never morally compromised. And even when he kinda is, it's someone else's fault. He'll do anything to accomplish the mission except
Yeah.
putting other people in danger. He always goes rogue. He's always working towards a greater good. He loves humanity, Tyler. He loves and cares about humanity so
But not
deeply.
not as much as he loves his team.
It's like an
He won't
aliens version of
sacrifice he won't sacrifice a member of that team for no one, I tell you.
well, I mean, the great conflict comes from that, but like it's like an aliens version of what a good man is. It's like a Jesus guy. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
It's
There's a
and I tell you what, they probably the allure, and I imagine Tom Cruise's heavy involvement is why they haven't gone down this route. But the allure of doing what James Bond did when they reinvented it for the modern audience, of making Ethan Hunt this down on his luck, retired old loser type has to get himself back in the game. Do you know what I mean? That kind of trope
yeah.
that you see in a lot of stuff. I'm sure that those ideas were bandied around, and Tom Cruise was like, no, no, Ethan Hunt is the all-star action man, and that is what he is in every damn movie, and that's why they are what they are.
Yeah. They carved this identity for themselves throughout the years. They started off very differently. Mission Impossible 1 is, a classic spy movie. It has this Brian De Palma touch. It's very somber in the first half. It becomes a little bit more campy and extreme with the train scene at the end and Jean Reno on his CGI helicopter chasing down a tunnel. But it's still a very grounded movie compared to what they did later. And because Tom Cruise became more and more involved with the production, and he brought in all these elements of like, okay, let's do stunts for real. I will be the one who does all these crazy things, and we love him for it. He's a crazy man, and he's a weirdo. And I saw a video of him eating popcorn, and I'm convinced he's not human anymore. But um,
He climbs a plane with no harness, flying through the air more humanly than a person eats popcorn. And that's the most Tom Cruise thing you'll ever hear.
and like going back to the earnestness and like of these movies, there's a line in this towards the end where this general is like reacting to something that Ethan is doing, and he says something along the lines of, "He did it. That son of a bitch really did it."
Yeah, that's literally the line.
And I mean, with a line like that in a 2025 movie, what more do you want? What more do you expect from cinema? Isn't this what Martin Scorsese was talking about, man? Like this is the best we can wish for, honestly. Like it's so straightforward and genuine. It's heartwarming, honestly, in today's climate.
I do agree. I think there's some levels here though still, and I still think, all the in between stuff of the action has to still make sense to set the stakes, and you got to care about the characters, because you don't want to be one of those films where it's like, oh, you only pique your interest when Tom Cruise is going to do a big stunt. Like
Yeah,
all the
yeah,
in
I
between
agree.
moments have to be good too, and I do think, um, yeah, it definitely, say if you're comparing Fallout to this last one, Fallout does that a lot better. It's a way more cohesive storyline.
100%. Like my
Yeah.
favorite is Rogue Nation, and Fallout is a
Oh,
close
fair.
second.
Okay. Yeah.
And they both, all these movies have some sort of device or ticking bomb of some kind that adds this energy, like this level of urgency. We need to find this guy by this time, or something is gonna explode somewhere. um, every individual scene is well crafted, and yes, we could spend a lot of time here poking holes at the plots, at all the conveniences and the coincidence and the unexplained stuff. But I think with movies like these, it's, I agree with you that some of the stuff, especially in this last one, does hinder the enjoyment a bit. But when you focus on the stuff, you're kind of missing the point. Like, I never advocate for the turn your brain off mentality, the just enjoy it approach to entertainment. But in this specific case, the plot is not what you go to see these movies for. In a lot of ways, it's kind of like the Fast and Furious franchise. Only Mission Impossible, I think, is a million times better than that, for my taste, at least. So
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think it makes the action sequences better when everything else in between is working towards a cohesive story. So, and I get it. Obviously, we're not going to watch an incredible character arc, or a great in-depth like story with a Mission Impossible film, but the times when they do achieve that, they are way better.
yeah. And but can I just say one thing before we go into the nitty gritty of the movie itself? The film, for my screening at least, I don't know if this happened for every screening of the movie, but like in my cinema, they played a little video message at the beginning before the movie started from
Oh
Tom
yeah.
himself, and Tom was thanking me for being there in the theater, supporting cinema. So you know what? You are welcome, Tom. You are so very welcome, and thank you.
Yeah,
uh,
I think that goodwill goes a long way. Um, it's rare. Somehow it's rare today in films where the people involved in the movie actually, are thankful and grateful to the fan base rather than just shitting all over them. So I think it's weird, because I was chatting to my mate about this the other day, how much of a hard turn I feel like in public perception there's been on Tom Cruise, and
yeah,
I feel like people really genuinely like him and think he's one of the best, like most genuine guys left in Hollywood.
the
Um,
PR team has done the Lord's work with this, because
oh, definitely, and
uh,
he's a damn good actor as well.
yeah,
Had never watched it before, and it was probably a couple months ago. I saw The Last Samurai,
yeah. Oh my
and
God.
oh, it's such a good film.
It is an amazing movie.
Such a
I
good
caught
movie.
it. I caught it on TV recently for like I haven't seen it in such a long time. It was like halfway done, and I didn't care. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna watch the last act of The Last Samurai because it's so hype. Yes, it's really
God
good.
damn, it's so good, and he's brilliant in it. It's probably one of my favorite performances of his. But I think he probably doesn't get the credit he deserves as an actor sometimes for the range he has.
Well, he
And
hasn't allowed himself to be in a lot of stuff that asks for range recently. He's
no,
done
no,
the
not
Jack
within the
Reacher
last.
movies, the Top
Yeah,
Gun
yeah.
reboot slash sequel, these Mission Impossible movies, but he hasn't done enough auteur stuff.
No.
I need another Tropic Thunder to really
Exactly.
see him.
Look at that range. You put his character from Tropic Thunder against his character from Magnolia. It's like this is range right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
And
good,
incredible
man.
makeup too.
Yeah, he's
Um,
very good.
So yeah, great. Tom Cruise is great and is good in this too. Even though I do not like his haircut in this one.
Yeah,
Uh,
I thought it was a bit silly, especially like when he's hanging onto the plane and it turns his hat into like a medieval friar monk. Like it
he
looked
looked like
ridiculous.
yeah. What are the Three Stooges? One of them
Yeah,
has that
yeah.
hair.
Do you remember Dumb and
Um,
Dumber? Like Lloyd Christmas, his fucking
yeah,
haircut, Jim
yeah.
Carrey's character.
That was him. That's exactly him. And with those big teeth of his, it just looks like him.
Yeah.
But yeah, this movie, okay, Final Reckoning. You asked about the title. This is another thing. They changed the title because it was supposed to be the Dead Reckoning Part Two, right? Because it was to be a direct sequel of the
Yeah, yeah.
first Dead Reckoning. But then Dead Reckoning surprisingly underperformed after the previous Mission Impossible movies. They all did really well, and Top Gun Maverick was a great success. They were expecting the movie to do a lot better than it did, but people did not show up for Dead Reckoning. So they retooled it a bit, and I think a lot of the stuff that holds this movie back is due to like when you do those screenings, like early screenings for
Yeah.
people, and people were just confused about the plot and about the characters, so they had to add all this extra explanation, and they changed the title so that people would not think, oh, I need to watch part one to watch this, because they were scared that the movie would not make back its budget. So
Like I said, I don't have a great memory of the older films, but from the ones I do remember, Mission Impossible has always had a good charismatic villain. Like I really liked Sean Harris, who played Solomon Lane, and
Solomon Lane is amazing. We have we have a great Philip Seymour Hoffman in the third one,
yeah,
and even the campiest one, the second one, has a funny but good villain. Who's the guy? I can't remember the name of the actor. Wait, let me check. He was supposed to be Wolverine, but he didn't do X-Men to do Mission Impossible 2. Doug Ray Scott, and he said he regretted his decision.
I was thinking, oh, maybe because, especially because we saw all these flashbacks, um, to previous films. I thought the main villain, this Gabriel guy, was
Yeah.
from a previous movie, and I was like, mate, and this is a guy who maybe hasn't acted in anything for a long time. So dull as a character. And I think especially when your main villain is the entity, this AI, that sub villain, that secondary guy has to be really good, and he
Yeah,
pales in comparison to all the other previous villains of the Mission Impossible series.
he pales in comparison to a fucking robot, because literally the AI is more interesting. And he in the first one, I felt like, oh, it's supposed to be this way. He is supposed to feel like just an everyman, like a nobody, because he is, he's hiding his identity to everyone. You don't know who that is, but then in the final movie, they will reveal some more stuff about him and his relationship to Ethan, because they clearly hint at them knowing each other, but they never go into it. So that was a big point of disappointment for me in watching the movie, for sure. So basically, in that reckoning, part one, uh he's is presented to be this very mysterious character, like he Ethan Hunt meets with him for the first time when he's in the airport. He's looking for this key. He's stealing this key. This very cool sequence with the introduction of the Helly Athwell character too, and he's basically this ghost. The camera, the security doesn't really pick up on his face. He disappears from every recording because the AI is controlling, like it's making him disappear, and you're like, oh wow. But then there's this moment where Ethan looks at him and they see each other, and then he disappears, and he's like, oh, there's this moment of recognition. And then you have this flash of a young Ethan Hunt and this lady, this black-haired lady, like falling down, clearly has been shot, and we see that the person who shot her is this Gabriel character. So you're like, oh my god, there's this history between these two. Like Gabriel is like this ghost from Ethan Hunt's past that is coming back to haunt him, and he's gonna make his life difficult, and he's gonna ally with the entity, and this is gonna be like a fight for survival and a fight for this humanity and the future of humanity because of this AI thing. But also it's gonna be a personal fight for Ethan because he hates this guy who killed his old girlfriend.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
maybe he had something to do with Ethan becoming a member of the Mission Impossible task force, because all the people who become agents, they have a past. They maybe were criminals, or like they were agents, like they worked for the government but they did something wrong, and so instead of throwing them in prison, they decide to give them this opportunity to serve the country secretly. I was expecting them to explore this, and it would have been so much more interesting than an hour of, oh, do you remember this thing that happened two movies ago that no one cares about? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and I thought it was highlighted in its worst moment when Haley Atwell's character
Yeah, Grace.
and Ethan they're strapped up and they're about to be tortured for information by Gabriel and his crew, and Gabriel sets down and he reveals that the rabbit's foot that they stole in Mission Impossible 3, was it? Mission
Yeah.
Impossible 3? It was
Yeah, it was
actually
Mission Impossible 3.
and I thought, I don't know, maybe I don't remember that film as well, but I kind of like it when a film like can tie something in, and it's definitely a retcon. Like they never.
Yeah,
planned
it's
this from them.
100% a retcon. Yes.
Yeah, but I like and sometimes retcons can work, and it's like, oh, actually, this thing you thought was just unrelated and 10 years ago actually set this thing off, and I thought they weaved that in quite nicely.
I liked it. It
yeah.
felt like a nice little touch. Like it works much better here, I think, than it did when Bond did it. I think in the recent Daniel Craig Spectre movie, they have this scene where they reveal that literally everything that happened to Bond in previous movies was orchestrated in some way by Spectre. And it felt so dumb there. It feels so dumb here too. But I feel like Mission Impossible can have these sort of classic reveals and make them work. It's not as self-serious as Bond.
Yeah, it doesn't break the story or anything at all. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh, hey, this is how this AI tech formed, and that's absolutely fine. I like that. But
You were saying, yeah.
Gabriel's referencing Philip Seymour Hoffman. We get the scenes of Philip Seymour Hoffman. We get him doing the exact same thing. I'm gonna hurt someone you love to get you to do this thing for me. And it's like, well, now you're referencing a better villain and you're copying his same plan. And it's just like, well, you're a cheap pretender of what Philip Seymour Hoffman was.
They wanted to kind of like homage this character, clearly the best part of Mission Impossible 3, and clearly a great actor that is sorely missed. But yeah, it was a bit clunky, and it didn't hold a candle to the original for sure. It's just a little reference, but I understand your point.
Yeah, just having him and having the current villain, doing the exact same thing as the older villain, and it not working as well. It just wasn't a good look, because then you're comparing the two like directly. So yeah, poor villain. Which is kind of crazy to think if this is going to be a last big two-parter of a franchise that's gone on for so long.
You should have a good villain.
Yeah, a well-known actor. Somebody with some charisma.
You can't upstage Tom. Like you can't risk upstaging the good Mr. Cruise.
I bet Philip Seymour Hoffman did in Mission Impossible 3.
But at the time, they were allowed to, because he was still, the younger,
he wasn't
scrappier version.
super powered.
Yeah.
Tom Cruise like he
It's
is now.
from 4 onwards that Tom really became the like kind of like the head of the franchise and like the decision maker. Because if you
Okay.
notice, like, like, yes, they have Brad Bird in the fourth one, but from the fifth onward, it's the same director. It's Christopher McQuarrie.
Yeah.
So they made this creative team that remained untouched, mostly untouched for these later movies. So
Or maybe like you said, where you thought they were going with it, or have a villain that's somehow incorporated throughout Ethan Hunt's story throughout the films, and you have
yeah,
him be more of a personal villain. Yeah, just that. I thought that was a very disappointing aspect.
there were people who were kind of like theorizing that we would see someone come back from earlier movies, and we did. We have the diarrhea guy from Mission Impossible 1. But there's another character that people were theorizing would come back, and he's literally one of the first. He's the first character to die in Mission Impossible 1. Is a member of Ethan Hunt's first team, and they were like, "Oh, but because he was a hacker, he's actually the one behind the entity. Is is gonna be like his consciousness, like fucking Captain America too." People were like, "Oh, it must be someone that we know because it's like the last movie." Anyway,
I kind of get that because whilst we're on the topic of villains, like the AI villain just seems like an incorrect choice for Mission Impossible as well. It doesn't seem like the
yeah.
right fit. And I suppose, yeah, you maybe assume, oh, actually, that's all just a ruse and it's somebody orchestrating this whole thing from behind the scenes.
Even Bourne did it. Like the fourth Bourne movie was like evil Facebook. Like it's annoying when these spy movies decide to go into the digital space. It's more fun when it's just gadgets and international espionage and hot ladies and galas and
Yeah, it's better to have a face of that villain, a face of the antagonist that you're actually going up against rather than this autonomous AI. I just felt like every time they kept being like the entity. I was like, this seems silly.
but I did appreciate the tone. Like it felt different from the previous one. It was less jokey, it was more serious. It really sold the gravity of the situation. I mean, almost every Mission Impossible deals with some world-ending crisis, but this one needed to feel more world-ending, if you know what I mean, and it
Yeah,
did.
rather than one nuke on one major city, we're nuking every major city now.
Yeah, it's not my favorite, but it's a solid entry. The plot, as we said, is not the best, but this movie has two sequences that are the two main selling points for the movie. And I don't know if they're going to continue. As they said, they leave it a bit open ended. Yes, they're waiting on the box office results, like when the cinema run ends. But if they do continue, and I think, in some form, they'll obviously pick this franchise back up in a few years, maybe with uh, Tom Cruise in a mentor role or something. But if they do continue, I do not know how they're gonna top what they've done here in terms of action sequences, because this is not the best Mission Impossible movie. It's not the most entertaining. It's definitely not the most well plotted. But these two sequences, where else can they go? I mean literally in terms of depth and or height, because we have and I don't know if we still want to say something more about the first half of the movie, or if we can dive in the submarine sequence, pun
Yeah, we can
intended.
go into it. I suppose the only other thing, but this also comes as a point for the end of the film. It's way overstuffed with too many characters that we're
Oh my
focusing
god,
on.
we've
And
got Mr. Milchick here.
Mr. Milkshake, who comes into it really late in, and then the focusing on him in the final montage of like flashbacks and flash forwards, like he was a prominent character throughout the series. It's like, what's
They
going
added
on
that
here?
in because he's such a popular actor.
And like the massive focus on Angela Bassett's president, I thought that was a bit of a waste. Like, I don't really see why she was become such a major character in it. I think some scenes with them discussing the issue, discussing the decisions they might have to make would have been fine, but like there was way too much of that in this film, cutting away to all those guys.
I mean, we wouldn't have had the Nick Offerman switcheroo red herring moment, which I thought was a really nice touch to that whole sequence. I was like, oh, Nick Offerman is gonna be the hard ass fucking general who wants to bomb everyone, and he's gonna take the gun from this guy and he's gonna use it to threaten the president and activate the bombs. And then no, actually, he defends the president with the gun that he stole.
It was probably the one bit in the film where I was actually surprised about the events that were taking place.
I was like, oh
Because
my
yeah, like you
god.
said, I was like, oh, here we go. He's gonna kill. He's gonna try and kill the president. But yeah, I actually I quite like that, and that's sort of my issue with these kind of films. They are just a bit too formulaic sometimes, and a bit too like paint by numbers in terms of, well, what's going to happen. So it is nice when they can shock you a bit, and Fallout had a couple moments like that where you're like, oh, they're
Fallout
going to do
is
this, oh, and then they do like the face reveal, and you're like, oh, actually, I didn't see that coming. That's quite a nice little
Rogue
twist.
Nation and Fallout, I think, are the highest point of the franchise because they have a lot of fun in they keep it Mission Impossible. It's clearly Mission Impossible. It's still that. It's not like a subversion, but they do take some of the elements that became a little bit stagnant throughout the years, and they change it up a little bit, and they put the characters in more dire situations. I don't know. I felt like, yeah, they try to replicate that here, and it's not as powerful. I thought it was a decent time. Specifically because of the sequence that we are going to discuss now,
Yeah, yeah,
because this
definitely the highlights of the movie for sure.
yeah
Probably the same with all the major action sequences from the last few films. I saw them promoted before the movie came out, so I know there's a big underwater sequence, and I know there's a sequence when he's climbing up and down on a plane, but it does not ruin it at all that you know it's going
yeah
to happen, because you're just watching it. And I think knowing that it actually happened makes it all the better as well.
yeah because okay, so this is the centerpiece of the whole movie, the entire first part of this film, and in a way the previous movie too is building up to this moment. This is the most impossible mission yet. Ethan needs to locate a submarine lost at sea, get inside, retrieve a sort of source code for these AI they need to destroy, and he needs to get inside and then escape and come back up. And his team needs to find where he is and prepare this hyperbaric chamber where he can safely decompress without dying. And I mean, you never think Ethan's gonna die during this scene. For one, is Tom Cruise. Secondly, there's still like at least an hour of movie left. So you're not afraid for his life. And even then, the sequence is so gripping. It's so well done. Once he's out in the water, he leaves the submarine. Obviously, we don't have dialogue anymore. It's just him, it's the ocean, amazing sound design, incredible soundtrack, and the silent storytelling here is off the charts. It's like the way they manage to clearly communicate to the viewer everything that's happening without using any words, showing his thought process, his problem solving abilities. At some point, plugs this in like this battery to light up the submarine. I don't care how it can work something like this on a submarine that has been submerged for years, but whatever. And then he finds himself locked in this room and has to escape the submarine through this tube, this launch
That's
tube
like
for
the one
for the
line of dialogue. He looks over and he goes, "Torpedo tube," and
yeah.
and there you go. That's all we need.
And that's probably been added because someone on one of those screenings were like, I don't understand what is this,
Why is there a hole in the ship?
there's torpedoes in the room and there's a hole shaped like a torpedo. I cannot connect the dots. But anyway,
And that bit was so cool when he's making his way to the torpedo tube and the torpedoes are rolling off and like into the water and they're almost crushing him. Like it's so cool.
and then he has to escape the submarine through this tube, and he can't fit through it with the whole diving equipment, so he has to strip down, and you can see that, like, by the way, is ripped. He's a 65-year-old man and he has the most amazing fucking six-pack. Anyway, uh, that's why he doesn't eat popcorn, I guess.
We'll
Uh,
make a short of you just glazing Tom Cruise's body out of
yes, please.
that.
uh, Man, I
And
mean,
I just clip him ripping off his scuba top over
and just
that,
put my
overuse
face
it.
over it, like, oh my god.
Have you ever seen a physique like that?
Dude, I mean, that Illuminati like diet probably works wonders, I guess. That, when you're eating angel wings for instead of chicken wings, that makes a difference in your diet. Anyway, it's an incredible sequence. He has to push the oxygen tank through the tube in front of him, and it's so tense. It's just so well done. It's an incredible sequence, incredible both in the sense that you can't believe what's happening, and in that what's happening is as far removed from reality as you can think. But you buy it, and I think this is the great achievement of these movies, that they make you buy into these impossible scenarios, and you're just like, oh my god, how is he gonna get out okay, of course he's gonna get out, of course they're gonna find him and put him
Yeah,
in this
yeah. But
hyperbaric chamber.
it's the how. Yeah, you're always thinking, okay, cool. I know he's going to make it through this, but how is he going to do it? Because I am not seeing any direction to victory here. But it's I mean, I will say this stunt did lose me a bit at the end. Like my suspension of
When he
disbelief
goes back
was
up, yeah.
I thought the way he's doing when he's floating back up and you can see he's really struggling for breath and he's like convulsing just before he reaches the surface. I thought all that was amazing. Just the way he then gets out and wakes up and he's in the decompression
I
chamber
thought
with
it was a
the
dream sequence. I was like
yes,
so
same.
confused. Yeah.
I thought that was it stretched it a little bit too far at the end, but like everything that happened within the submarine, I assume he'd probably be frozen to death going up in his pants
Yeah,
just from
of
the submarine
course.
all the way to the top. But
Insane. Well, yeah, insane. But it's Ethan Hunt. It's Jesus, man. Like, he can survive this.
but it's the little details in between, like you said. But I imagine when you're writing and constructing this scene,
Yeah.
Tom Cruise might come up with the idea of being like, oh, I have to go through this tube, but my suit doesn't fit, so I'll take off my suit and do all this. And, maybe in a different filmmaker or the people that maybe made the older ones, they'd be like, oh, nobody wants to see you stop and take off your suit and then do the stunt, and it's just a bit of a waste of time, it seems. But no, it's those little details that make it feel
Real.
realistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the beauty. That's what I love about Mission Impossible is everything, like, oh, something always goes wrong, and they have to like, I cannot, like, every time I watch a Mission Impossible movie, a new Mission Impossible movie, I was like, okay, this is the plan. How is the plan not gonna work, and what are you going to do to solve the problem? Like halfway through, like, and it originated in the first one when he has to go down with the iconic shot of him on the rope, and yeah, he can't touch the floor, and like the sweat is almost gonna touch the, like he's gonna fall down, and everything, like the fact that they add this little wrinkle every time, it's so funny and it's fun, and just, yeah, it makes you really, like, you moving, like, the idea of just like, you're watching this, you're engaged in the sequence, and then, oh my god, something is going wrong, and you move on to your seat, and like, you're like, oh, okay, so how are they going to solve this? Like, you feel really engaged in the sequence because they keep surprising you with these little moments.
They need little to no dialogue within these sequences because what the franchise as a whole does
The
quite well.
dialogue ruins it, honestly.
Yeah, but what the franchise does quite well on the whole is before they do these big moments, we get all the characters sitting around a table discussing the minutiae of the plan. And so the audience knows the danger, we know the scale, we know the objectives, we are completely aware of what needs to happen and what Ethan needs to do in these moments. Whereas sometimes you get thrown into an action sequence and you're like, all these things are happening. And you're like, what's going on? I don't understand the stakes. I don't understand the objective. Whereas in each of the big moments in the Mission Impossible films, they do a very good job of being like, you have to do this, and especially like when he's with Mr. Milchek's crew, and they're talking about all the dangers of dropping to that level of pressure and coming back up, and they're all like, oh, you're going to get the bends and you're going to get this and this is going to happen, and it makes it all increases the stakes of everything. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I could not wait for that moment in the submarine. One, because the first half of the movie, unfortunately, is not really engaging, and two, because they kept building up to it so well. So, yeah, really, really well done. something that I did not like that much. We were mentioning, him coming back up and waking up in this chamber with the Haley Atwell's character Grace. I have a bone to pick with these movies, specifically the last two movies, because they killed off Rebecca Ferguson's character, Ilsa.
Just
Uh,
replaced her with Haley Atwell, basically.
and I guess there was some scheduling conflict. She was doing something else, probably Silo. I am not sure. She
Oh
probably
my
Dune,
god.
maybe Dune.
Have you seen Silo?
I haven't seen Silo. People have recommended.
She should not have done that for this. My
Yeah.
god.
But she was one of the best additions to the franchise. She was introduced in 5. She was a really fun character, and I just don't understand. Like they killed her off in a way that almost felt like they were gonna reveal later that they hid the fact that she survived, and they hid her from the entity, and she went off the grid for some reason, and she would come back at the end to help Ethan. Like I kept expecting something like that to happen because of the way they decided to do it in the first movie, and then they just replace her with Haley Hatwell, which I liked in the first movie, like in Bad Reckoning. But here, she is stripped of almost any personality. Her personality is, I love Ethan, but I cannot show it too much, and he cannot kiss me because I'm too young for him, and it would be inappropriate. Like they exchange these longing looks of like, oh my god, you're so amazing, you're Jesus. I would give you the key to the world because you would be the only person in life that would be able to save the world and keep it safe forever. And I'm like, you were so spunky and fun in the first movie. What happened to you? Like, there's a few moments of that in this, but she was just
I
like looking at Ethan like he was, I don't know, Chris Hemsworth. And
Yeah, and
I'm
it's like,
sorry.
why didn't they kiss in that pressure chamber at
It
the end?
felt
Like
like it
that was
was
that was the moment where they should have done that. And it's like, okay, well, why are you setting up this romance for no reason if it's not going to go anywhere?
the
It's
reason is that Ethan cares about his team so much, and he cares about
so
humanity,
much he
and
wants to fuck them.
yeah, well, no, you see, like is not someone that would take advantage of the extreme passion that Ailey Hatwell would feel for him. Is above all that, is Jesus. And
He only fucks danger.
exactly, and he fucks it in the face.
Because
um
well, I think in that's kind of throughout these films, all the love interests are so underdeveloped. I think it only really works when he has an ex-wife that he wants to protect. Like
yeah,
that made
that
sense, and
was that was
you don't
good.
have to focus on them being like a couple and any drama that comes with that. It's
You
just
have
somebody
Michelle
there
Monaghan.
who's
You
yeah.
have Michelle Monaghan in the third one, and she's this love interest and wife, and because he's settled down, and then he's brought back into this life of espionage and danger, and he's like, okay, I need to leave you, and then you don't see her for a whole movie, and you're like, oh, they just forgot that he was married. No, they bring it back in the following movie, and they're like, oh wait, is he has this person in his life that he cares about, and he has to protect her. And I
Hmm.
felt like, it's okay, it was appropriate the way they did it. I don't know. Um,
Yeah,
Clearly, it was. Yeah.
here it's so underdeveloped, and especially when she's, her character wise and what she brings to the team is not that different necessarily than what um, Mantis brings to the team. Like there's so many characters in the team at the end. Like the other guy, like Dagus, whatever his name was, the other
Oh yeah.
operative guy who joins their crew. You got him. You've got Mantis. You had you had the ex Langley guy whose Inuit wife decided to join the crew as well, which was I
Love
thought
it.
was.
Loved it so much. When
It's so I honestly it made me laugh when the CIA guys have them all lined up in the cave and they've basically got them caught in their meet with
and who are
Gabriel.
you?
And he's like, this is your elite squad, and it pans down. And it's like this old couple, and then all these just randos.
and
Um,
uh And to just as a reminder of how much of a Mission Impossible nerd I am, when they introduce him, when like they go into the thing and they show him for the first time, and he goes like he's bringing tea or something, I
Yeah, yeah.
immediately recognized him. I was like, oh
Did
my
you?
god, it's him. I haven't seen him in any other movie for 20 years, but that's him. That's the guy who shed his pants in Mission Impossible 1.
Like I said about the like showing reverence to the old stuff and like having
Yeah,
the reference to the rabbit's foot and having that play a role in this
yeah.
film's plot. Like that's how you do a good callback reference. Like he actually had a part to play in the story. There was a reason they went to go see him. There was he played a role in the end. It wasn't just, oh, he's the guy who grabbed a knife in Mission Impossible 1, even though they do show you that flashback. But they just did it. It was a nice touch. It's
I
like
love
nicely
that.
weaved into the story.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
fact that his wife came along, I thought that was silly.
I
Like,
mean,
and
yeah.
especially there's such a funny line when he's, the CIA guy is like going down. He's like, "Oh, I recognize you, Dunlow," and he's like, "Yeah, I used to work at Langley," sort of thing. And then he turns around, "This is my wife, Tapisa." And that's it. It's like, yeah, we don't
Yeah.
care.
There's a bunch of weird lines in here. Even what's his face? The other actor, the operative who chases Ethan Hunt around with
Who
the other
shakes his
guy.
hand at the end?
Yeah, they shake hand,
Yeah,
and they
I like
do
that
the
guy.
little,
He's
and
he's from
they do the
Boardwalk Empire.
yeah, he's great, and they do the little like Schwarzenegger car weather
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
like, uh, but they don't have the same muscle to pull it off. But yeah, he chases, he wants to get Ethan Hunt so much in the first movie, and that's his character. It's just he just wants to find Ethan Hunt, and this other colleague of his that then joins the team is like, but maybe he's the good guy and we shouldn't chase him down this much. And he's like, no, I want to find him. And then we have a throwaway line in this at the beginning where we find out that he is the son of John Boyd's character in the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
Mission Impossible. For some reason, they decided to direct retcon this, and then it
Now,
doesn't have anything to do with anything.
and there you have a prime example of of a bit of a retcon or a flashback or callback, whatever you want to call it, not weaved into the story. Well,
I was so confused. I was like, why
and
are
they show another
you?
flashback of John Vaught at the end when they have a bit of a confrontation on the plane, and he's like, we gotta trust each other. It's what the entity won't think we'll do. And they show
Yeah.
you the flashback of John Vaught, and it's like, what was the point in that?
Well, they trusted each other, and he fucked him. He fucked him up. So yeah. Um,
What else? And I mean, anything, almost every line Mantis said was silly. I just thought her involvement she was so unnecessary in this film.
yeah, you keep calling her Mantis, and I was like, oh yes, that's the same actor. Pom Clementif is her name.
Clementif, yeah,
Yeah, she's well, she has very few lines because she's a silent badass. But yeah, she was weird. She was a weird addition to this. They gave her more importance that was needed.
yeah.
Like she, like I don't know, like yes, she was redeemed in the first part. At the end, she helped them, and that's fine. But you can't just leave her at that. You don't
That
have to
should have been
bring her
it.
back. Yeah, yeah,
Exactly, because like you said, she's redeemed. Fine, move on. Let's say you've got enough side characters in the team to work with and bounce off here. That you don't need her in it. There was a bit when she's stitching Benji up.
I love that though. Love
It
that
was a, it was
sequence.
it was a decent scene, but then Benji's like, oh, you have 100 milliseconds or something to grab the optical drive before the entity gets in or something like that, and Pom turns around and she goes, "The blink of an eye."
Yeah, because they
So
said
yep,
it earlier.
yes, yeah. Oh, thank you, Pom. Thank you for that.
Well, yeah, I know what you mean. Like they over explain stuff all the time, but they want you to be engaged and not wondering like what does that mean? Like they want you to be in the scene and know what's happening and why it's happening. And I feel like they do a very good job most of the time, and then sometimes they overdo it and they over explain, and it's annoying, and I agree. But in that case, it was like, oh, it's a little level of gravity, like, oh, it's a blink of an eye, and you're like, you need to do it in a blink of an eye because you are the greatest fucking thief of all time, and no one can feel your hands in their pocket or something. So yeah.
And
um,
you had that Dagus guy who, when Ludlow and his wife decide, oh, I'll stay back and defuse the bomb,
yeah.
he's like, oh, I'll stay back because I got nothing to do in there. Like, oh, what?
You have nothing to
what do you
do here
mean?
either.
Yeah. No, but we actually don't need you here. You don't have to die, dude. If you really want to die, then just maybe you could be the only one that stays out here. I thought that was bizarre.
I thought they
I
were gonna
thought
kill off him. Kill
I
off
thought they were setting him
the.
up to turn, and he was gonna be a villain or something.
That
Because
would
I
have
was
been
like, that
smart.
was I was like, that was such a weird line. Why would he do that? And it was just a stupid
Because they
line.
want you to know where everyone is at every time, at every moment. Like they want you to have a clear concept of like spatial, like where everyone is in any given scene, and this is a result of that.
And
Um,
I want to see the full wide shot of Tapisa running that distance in 10 seconds. I want to see
yeah, exactly. So it's not believable at all. Well, I mean, she's clearly trained to survive in very harsh conditions. So moving on, because I think we've talked about this long enough. I think we go to the other great action sequence here, which is the plane chase. They do this on old school planes because the entity and technology, they can't have that. So and I found hilarious the line when Gabriel holds them hostage in the. I don't remember what it was. It was like underground in a cave, and it's like, oh, and I am gonna leave on my plane now because you're gonna all die, and there's a spare one just in case. Like he
that.
said that there so that we knew that Ethan had another plane to hop onto if he missed the first one. And that was so funny to me. But yeah, just an excuse for a cool action sequence with Ethan Hunt in the sky.
But this was amazing, though.
Yeah,
I think when I saw some of the behind the scenes, I assume he has at least one like little
yeah, he
harness
does. He
round his
does.
waist or something. Yeah, yeah, good. Because
He
I'm
has
like,
ropes.
that's fucking ridiculous, man.
Well,
Like
we've
what
done
he's doing.
something similar in Fallout with the helicopter.
I thought that
And
was also great as well. Like when he climbs up the rope and gets into the chopper. Yeah, that was
yeah,
sick.
and in Rogue Nation, the opening action sequence is he climbs on a plane that's taking off, and he holds
Yeah,
on
oh, I
on the
remember that. He's
outside, and
yeah,
then he
yeah,
has to go back inside. And yeah, he there, like I think he had like special contact lenses on his eyes to avoid, like, because he couldn't show like the goggles and stuff. Here
yeah,
they,
yeah, yeah.
they work in the fact that he needs to find the goggles because he can't see shit. And I thought that's another little element that adds to it. It's like, oh, it's realistic to an extent. He
Yeah,
needs the goggles to
because if
survive.
you were making that on a green screen, they wouldn't be like, fuck it, he doesn't need goggles. What's the point? Like, it's not, people. No
Yeah,
one's gonna notice these things. But no, it's those little details which
you
sell
do.
the stunt.
The only moments that were not convincing were the moments where Gabriel was in shot, because clearly those moments were not shot in real life in a real plane. They were shot on a green screen in a studio, because he's not a stuntman like Tom Cruise is. And yeah, is is so funny. Like he's like, "Oh, I won! You are going to die." and,
Oh god,
and
yeah.
then he just dies like a bitch. It's incredible. Like I felt you die like you lived, Gabriel, like a useless piece of shit.
Exactly. Um, I thought so. He's Gabriel jumps off and he's like, "Well, I'm the only one with a parachute," and then he hits his head and he dies. And I was like, "Oh, cool! Tom Cruise is going to jump off the plane, grab Gabriel in the air, chuck him out of his
Yeah,
parachute, and get inside his parachute, and that's how he'll survive." And I thought that would have been a way better action sequence than him just climbing back into the second seat and being like, oh, actually, no, there's a parachute here too.
Where did the second parachute come from? And also, where
I guess
did the
because there's two
second
seats.
parachute? Yeah. Okay. Well, but
Yeah.
why would he say that he only had one parachute?
Well, exactly. Why that line then became silly because it's like, if I've got the only parachute except from the spare one up in the seat that you're hanging onto right now. So, but don't worry about that.
Yeah,
I mean, I think all parachutes have a secondary parachute that you can pull out in case the first one doesn't work.
I felt like that was so cheap. Like they want you to believe that he doesn't have a parachute. Then he finds a parachute, but the parachute catches fire. Like you're like, okay, so he's gonna fall to his death. No, there's a second parachute, but they don't establish that, so it feels cheap when he actually is on the ground with the second parachute. It's like, okay, yeah, he survived, but like why and how?
And it's like, well, I suppose maybe because they're pitching it as the final movie, but he's not going to die in that fashion. You're like, oh god,
No.
in the last movie, Tom Cruise fell 1,000 feet and got smushed into pate on the floor. Like that was his big moment. So
that's the
if you know if you know the audience isn't going to believe that, then why not just show him at least trying to get that second parachute out as he's falling to the ground?
He either dies in an explosion or like trying to stop like a nuclear device to go off, and like they shoot him in the shoulder or something. Like I don't know, like they can't.
Yeah, it'll be a heroic death, not a splat on the ground. So I thought that could have been a bit better.
Yeah, well, it's a good sequence. It doesn't like it ends on a little bit of a, I don't know. It wasn't as hype as other moments in the movie, and then you have this ending that is very unclear on what they want to do with the franchise next. Like, oh, they all gather around in Trafalgar Square and they look at each other meaningfully, and then they disappear in the crowd. Unseen agents of justice that try to hold chaos at bay in this modern world, and we need to thank them for their service. And I'm like, yes, but like, just have him retire, man. Like, what the fuck? Like why don't you just, he's like, oh, this is gonna be my last mission. I am too old for this now. But if one day another great agent comes along and he needs someone to tutor them and mentor them into this new role, I'll be there because I am the best. Like, it would have been more meaningful. You hint at the arrival of someone else or some new threat.
I thought that's kind of what they were doing with the little nods to all the other characters. It's like, oh, hey, now any of these guys can now be the next Ethan Hunt sort of thing. But I didn't. I thought the ending was. Well, I thought the ending was terrible of this one. Like, doing the voiceover. Luther's voiceover is nice, and his like final message being recorded on the device.
By the way, I feel so betrayed by this. Like, Luther gets cancer off screen, and then he's like working on this encryption key from a basement somewhere in London, and then he explodes. I was so confused at the beginning. I was like, did I miss something? What happened to Luther? And then I was like, okay, so Vig Rhames is, he's a little old. I guess he doesn't want to do this anymore. The last few movies he's clearly been.
I'll do the movie, but I'll just sit in bed.
Can you bring my bed to the set and I'll just stay there? I'm tired, man. And I understand that, but like when they kill him off at the beginning, then I was like, okay, so no one else is going to die for the rest of the movie. Kind of like Thunderbolts when they kill off Taskmaster, and you're like, okay, so no one else is gonna die now.
I did think there was potential that maybe
Benji
another character could die. Yeah, I thought maybe Benji would die, like another one of the classic. More classic.
You can't kill Benji, come on.
But yeah, so I liked giving Luther the sort of final voiceover of everything. But then we cut away from Ethan getting up from the parachute, and then we go straight to the president, and we see her having, saying thank you to her, or saying hello to her son. And we get all these flashes of all these other characters, and it's like, I don't think the audience cares about these characters that we've had for 1 or 2 movies as much as you think they do.
This
should all be focused on Ethan. Yeah, it should have been pure closure for him and his team.
Just give me an extra scene of him just being a normal person at home.
Yeah, I kind of thought the last scene was going to be like Luther's, a little private funeral for Luther. And where him and the team are there, and they all get to say their goodbyes. And
that would have been nice.
Yeah,
that would have been better.
better than them just walking around Trafalgar Square and all looking at each other, doing like the Michael Caine, Christian Bale Batman scene. It's like, yeah, we won't say nothing, but we know exactly what's happening, sort of thing. Yeah. So I thought the ending was very messy in that sense, and it's like you're kind of forgetting this is all about Tom Cruise, really. Ethan Hunt. So it's the side characters in this one were way too many and didn't supplement the story very well.
Yeah, agreed. So what kind of grade would you give this movie?
Dead Reckoning probably gets a 5.5, 6 for me, and this maybe goes back up to a 7.
I liked the first part more than this, honestly.
Did you? Okay.
I love the train sequence, and I feel like some of the sequences, like the car chase in Italy, like it's a very classic setting for a chasing like this. But the way they have this comedy with Hayley Atwell character who's trying to escape, but he wants to stay with her, so they have they're handcuffed together and they need to drive the car, but it's I don't know, it felt like the very inventive, very kinetic, sorry, and fun, while this has more of a somber tone, and this makes the first half really drag until we get to him. The film picks up in pace and it becomes interesting when Ethan uh, throws himself into the water, and like the people find him on the submarine. Like that's the moment
was
where
a
the
really
movie,
cool scene.
when they emerge from the water and they pick him up.
That was cool.
So I think Dead Reckoning was more consistent throughout in its tone and its pacing, while this has two incredible sequences, but the rest of the stuff really left something to be desired.
I just think for me those action sequences were better in this one. The submarine and the plane were
totally,
a lot better than the train. But similar in quality, I'd say.
Absolutely, yeah. No, they are pretty much up there. I'd give Dead Reckoning and Final Reckoning, I guess they are both around a 7-ish. Yeah,
fair. Cool. Well, that was our review of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, which, who knows, maybe the last of the franchise, maybe not, probably not, knowing the world we live in. And there'll be a spin-off show on Amazon in 5 years' time, and we'll get the origin story for Benji. And
well, they're going back to TV. Mission Impossible started on TV, so would make sense.
We'll see all of that, I'm sure, in the years to come. Once Tom Cruise's cold dead hands have let go of that property, it'll be hoard out.
And you must be out of your mind.